But bring in Nick Wright. He's not going to be happy with this.
It's just unbelievable. You know what I wish, Colin?
What?
I wish that the Kansas City Chiefs, for winning 2 Super Bowls, got the benefit of the doubt the Buffalo Bills got for winning 2 games. That's what I wish.
Yeah.
I had to listen before the Cowboys game started that the Bills were called on multiple broadcasts, maybe the hottest team in football, because they were on a 1-game winning streak when they didn't even play that well in the second half of the game they won. So it is absolutely chef's kiss perfect that for the 4th straight year, I am going to get to be the only national sports media member correct on the Bills, because everyone else, including you, is going to step on this same rake. You said very quickly at the end there, oh, they have a soft schedule at the end of the year. They'll win the last 3. Will they? Like, oh, yeah, but why is the schedule soft? Because they played terrible quarterback Easton Stick after they had lost to Zach Wilson to start the year. And then they play the Patriots, who already beat them. And then nothing would be more Bills, McDermott, Allen-esque than them winning those 2 games, be playing for the division in Week 18, and then just losing and missing the playoffs. And if and when that happens, Colin, you know what I think you and many other shows will lead with?
What?
Guys, I know the playoff field's been set, but don't count out the Buffalo Bills. I know right now they're eliminated. They're not actually in the field. But if for somehow another team cancels, the Bills are dangerous. People can't quit this team. So go ahead. Fall in love with them because they played a great 4 quarters. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I do like their run game, which is, I said it yesterday, is those Steelers teams where Big Ben were often better when they didn't need Big Ben, but 2 to 3 plays a game. But we'll see. All right. So I said this.
We'll see.
You ever go shopping for a car? You go to a convention or you go somewhere and somebody's selling you too hard. It could be, you're at a store. Somebody's selling you too hard and you're like, stop the grift. I feel like Saleh is befriending Aaron because Aaron's going to go up to Woody Johnson and say, keep Saleh. And then Saleh, because he knows Aaron's going to get clobbered for Lazard and Nat Hackett. And it's a buddy-buddy thing because Robert Saleh yesterday is like, Aaron is working so hard and he may play. And I'm like, timeout. This is becoming a bit of a grift. I'm being sold too hard on Aaron's going to play.
It's a farce.
Right?
It's a farce. He was never going to play. Give me a break. And this is now the second time that Aaron Rodgers, if we take him at his word, has discovered heretofore unknown medical breakthroughs, and my only request is share them with everybody. If you remember 3 years ago when he sold us on, I've been immunized but didn't take the vaccine because I found a healthier, safer way. Okay, so be it. That's fine. That's absolutely your personal choice. But I would just argue, then publish it. Then tell everyone about it. And now, poor Kirk Cousins still in a walking boot. Meanwhile, Aaron is doing leaping interceptions. And everyone's like, and the story, as always, Colin, is going to be, he wanted to. And he could have. He broke all modern medicine records, but the team wouldn't let him. They held him out. And I'm here to say, go play. Eliminated from the playoffs or not, go play. Aaron should show everyone that he was right and every other part of medical science was wrong. Go play, even if it's just for a quarter, just to show that you did. I think, Colin, personally, Aaron initially started this rehab believing I'm going to be able to play, realized maybe 6 weeks ago I'm not going to be able to play, and now everyone has been play acting at his behest, including himself. Yeah. I think he has known, even if the Jets were on a 4-game winning streak, and if they were on a 4-game winning streak, you know what the narrative there would have been? Well, Zach's earned this opportunity. Let him keep going. He was never taking the field again this year, and I think he's known it since Halloween.
Russell Wilson, Sean Payton. I said, if you take a step back, they're going to be 10-7. They have the weakest schedule remaining. They face 2 interim coaches and 3 backups. Sean Payton has solved to the degree you can, Russ. The offensive line's 21st to 5th, and they need another pass rusher. Got to get better at tight end. Maybe another receiver. They're going to finish 10-7. May not make the playoffs, but may. And then we overreacted to the criticism of Hackett and the wristband and the weekend. In the end, privately, I think Sean Payton would have signed up for 10-7. What did you make of the outburst? Is it uglier than I think?
I didn't make too much of the outburst, and I think you're probably right. He would have signed up for 10-7, but I don't think this is the quarterback Sean Payton wants to be tied to. And what I think, and this is kind of nerdy cap stuff, but it is an important element here. Everyone focuses on that if the Broncos were to move on from Russ this offseason, it's $84 million in dead cap over the next 2 years. And so they're like, oh, they can't move on from him. What they fail to recognize is if they don't move on from him this offseason, then next year it's still $84 million in dead cap because this offseason, another $37 million of his salary becomes guaranteed. So unless Sean Payton wants Russell Wilson as his quarterback each of the next 2 seasons, it makes sense to do it this offseason. So I think the best case scenario for Sean is that he has coached around Russell's limitations, has made him palatable to another team, maybe Atlanta or someone like that in a trade where you can get a mid-round pick and he can start fresh. Because I do think Sean Payton's done a very good job in pulling that team out of the depths, but I also think he knows they have a very hard ceiling with this quarterback, and I think Sean's frustration bubbled over publicly when he's done a good job of keeping it private. I personally would be very surprised if Russell Wilson is the Broncos' starting quarterback next year.
So if you go look at Nick Sirianni, Philadelphia, I've compared Philly to Kansas City. I can see them both in the conference championship. They're fine. I worry more about Philadelphia because Andy Reid will get it right. Sirianni had a bumbling opening presser, was 2-5, gave Shane Steichen the play calling. Magic for a year and a half. Steichen leaves, they're bumbling again. Uneven. Jalen Hurts is like, we're not committed. Right. Is that Dan Quinn with Kyle Shanahan was 2 different coaches. Without him and with him. And Bill Belichick with Josh McDaniels last 7-8 years. And without him, Mac Jones made the playoffs. Without him, it's embarrassing. So I look at Philadelphia, and what concerns me that doesn't concern me with Kansas City, because I don't think the Chiefs or Eagles are as good as last year, is that Andy will figure it out. Is it possible the guy who would figure it out is now the coach of Indianapolis, and Philadelphia is just not special right now with this staff?
I think Philadelphia, unfortunately, has a bunch of issues. The other difference between Kansas City and Philadelphia is this. Kansas City, for all the hand-wringing we've done about their offense right now, that's been the story of the season. What's wrong with the Chiefs' offense? What's wrong with Mahomes? And now we're approaching Christmas, and Mahomes leads the league in total yards, and the offense is top 10 in points, top 10 in yards. So for the Chiefs, it was they don't look as dominant as they once did, but they were still more than fine. The Eagles, and I know you're talking about the offensive side of the ball, I'll get to that in a moment. The Eagles have a terrible defense. By any metric, a terrible defense. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop you from scoring. They can't stop you in the red zone. They can't stop you on third down. And while everyone is focused on the offensive struggles last night, you let Drew Lock, and shout out to Drew Lock, Kansas City's own, happy for him, but you let Drew Lock go 92 yards in 100 seconds to beat you in a football game. That can't happen. You then add to it that the offense doesn't look quite right, and you have a recipe for disaster. I think for the big picture concern for Philadelphia is, are we going to look back on Jalen Hurts' 2022 season and say that was an indicator of who he is? Or are we going to say, yeah, that was the best year of his career by a mile? That's the big picture concern. The more micro concern for right now, Colin, and you know I've been consistent on this, I don't think that your head coach should have a drastically different personality than your leader. And I think that Sirianni, whether it's last night him mouthing something to Pete Carroll across the field, whether it's him MFing the Chiefs fans after the win, whether it's him doing that patronizing head nod during the divisional round, he is this bombastic look at me guy, and no one else on the team is. And so when things aren't going well, I question that issue. I question overall the fact that the Eagles fans, they blame Jonathan Gannon for the Super Bowl loss. They just demoted Sean Desai, and now Matt Patricia's a doofus because he had James Bradbury in single coverage. Maybe the answer is your back seven personnel defensively is not good enough and has not been good enough for a year and a half now. So yeah, I think the Eagles have a lot of structural issues that they covered up with close wins early that are bubbling more to the surface right now.
So last night it got people really worked up. It made me laugh. The Lakers unveiled a new banner. It was the in-season tournament banner. And the crowd didn't really have much not very enthusiastic. Should we think less of the Lakers for doing this? Because the internet exploded last night.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is just an example of if LeBron's involved, it'll be controversial. Let me ask you something, Colin. And you don't have to, give specifics here. But have you ever, thrown your promoting weight behind a company initiative that maybe deep down you were not quite as enthusiastic as you led on to the air?
Yes.
I mean, I never have done that. Everything we do, I'm all in on. But I would imagine some people at times, it's like, oh my God, you will not believe what's coming up. And maybe somewhere in your head, you're like, it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be great. I think the Lakers were doing the NBA a solid, which is setting the precedent. We are going to treat this seriously. And this is, and I think I said this to you before, right now it looks goofy. In 20 years, I think it will be a cool added feature of arenas because what they're going to do is, let's say the Lakers win 3 more of these things. Yeah. They're not hanging any more banners. They're doing like high school, district championships where you just add the year. Yeah. I think that'll be cool. I think it would be a cool thing. Like, I'll give you let's say the midseason tournament existed in the 80s. I know if I'm not mistaken, you were a big fan of the Alex English Nuggets, right?
Yes, I love them.
Like that was one of the teams you grew up watching?
Them.
Okay. So they didn't win any titles, but it would be let's say they had won 3 midseason tournaments and you went to a Nuggets game in 2023, be like, oh wait, so the Nuggets in the 80s, they must have had somebody, they must have had something. Let me look that up. I'm interested in it. I think it'll be a cool feature to be able to go to a stadium and be like, oh, this team, in addition to winning a championship, won 3 out of 4 midseason tournaments. So right now, it looks kind of out of place, but I think down the road, I think it can add an element. And lastly, anyone saying they bastardized the rafters, they hung that thing next to banners won by a team from Minneapolis with George Mikan as its best player. So you can hold your pearl clutching with that. You're lessening the banners when they're hanging them next to the Minneapolis Lakers banners, won in the 50s.
Yes. And by the way, when it comes to company initiatives, they have all been great at every network I've worked with.
We've been lucky. It's unbelievable. I've never once had to promote something I didn't fully believe in. That's why it was such a hard hypothetical exercise, but I knew as a pro you'd be able to put yourself in that mind frame even though having never done with it.
Of course. Nick Wright, good seeing you, buddy. First things first. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.